Okay, and we are live. So, good evening, Dr. Sreenivasan, and welcome to our Ayurveda Biology webinar series.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
This is a webinar series that started to help students and also practitioners, as well as people who do both biology and Ayurveda or had interest in both fields, to try and understand what is the course that we offer and why is it that we're offering this course, and what are the possibilities from having a sort of understanding of both knowledge systems. So what we'll do in this video with a little bit about our program, and followed up by an introduction, your introduction, and then a few questions to you that we've already shared, and then whatever questions there are from our audience.
Sure.
All right. You should be able to see my screen now. Oh, this is the wrong slide. Apologies for that. Good evening, everybody, from the University of Transdisciplinary Health Sciences and Technology. We are a small private university based in Bangalore. Do you still see my screen, Vishnu? Something just bizarre happened.
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes, please go ahead.
There's a slight disturbance in the audio, though.
No, slight disturbance in the audio, but otherwise it's fine.
Right.
I can't see my screen at all. Right. Okay.
Yeah, but now again, your presentation we cannot see. You have to you share the slides once again.
Just give it a minute. Just let's see if it refreshes. Are you able to see the university photo?
No.
Okay, this is bizarre. All right, we're going to do something different then. I'll share the entire screen and see if that works better.
Yeah, now it's the particular presentation mode.
Okay. So we are a very small university, and our niche is in traditional health sciences with a particular focus on Ayurveda. Our university has 7 centers, and these centers are quite different from what you would normally expect in a university. We have the Center for Ayurveda, Biology, and Holistic Nutrition, where myself and Dr. Vishnu Prasad are based out of. We have the Center for Local Health Traditions, for data sciences and informatics. And although that sounds very computational, it is about digitizing manuscripts and preserving them for the next generation. We have a Center for Natural Resources and Conservation, which works mainly in the field of conservation of medicinal plants. We also have an ethno-veterinary center, which is very unusual. They work with so Ayurveda-inspired and Ayurveda-based formulations for domestic animals. And we also have a clinical sciences department. We don't have a generic chemistry, biology department at all. And so these centers have been based around our understanding of what is required to preserve traditional health and also to share it with the world. So we do 3 things, which is research, education, and outreach. And all 3 of these play a very important role in our university. So this program was conceived as a way for us to elaborate on our educational purpose. We often find that in India, Ayurveda training happens in a silo and fundamental biology training happens in a silo. And these streams of people never meet unless they chance to become friends or perhaps had a family history somehow that allowed both of these streams to meet. And so we designed a course that was meant for people who both wanted to look at traditional science from a modern lens, or those who were trained in modern biology but wanted to understand traditional science, medical science from a modern lens. So for both groups of people. And we believe that the term life sciences is not new or different from Ayurveda. Because if you look at the word Ayurveda in terms of its broad scope, it is Ayu or life and Veda or science. So it is life sciences. Of course, the life sciences that we practice today is a lot more broader. It encompasses everything from molecular biology in terms of DNA right up to ecology and evolution. But we thought that this is the type of broad structure that would be useful to anybody who wants to then go on with this training to build either their clinical practice or to look at Ayurveda pharmacology or to look at conservation, right? And conservation right from of traditional health practices right to the plants themselves. And so we've tried to design a course with a very strong base. And this base composes of 4 semesters. The first 2 semesters are completely academic and theoretical. So students focus on topics in biology such as biochemistry, molecular biology, ecology, and that's complemented with practicals. So we want each student in our program to feel very comfortable in a lab, not only with how to go about the scientific process or the scientific method in terms of asking questions, but also how to execute those experiments on the ground. So the first year is pretty intense, and that's what our students will attest to as well. Because suddenly, those who have never been exposed to Ayurveda learn about the fundamentals of Ayurveda, a little bit about the pharmacology, the medicinal plants, and those who are from Ayurveda are suddenly exposed to the Watson and Crick model, enhancer sequences on DNA, developmental biology, and biochemistry. And we have also tried very hard in all courses to try and bring elements from both of these sciences in. So right now, Dr. Vishnu Prasad is doing a course called Integrative Immunology, where he takes one lecture and that's followed up by another lecture by an Ayurveda Vaidya. So on one hand, he talks about B cell and T cell maturation, whereas the Vaidya talks about Vyadhika Shamatva. And how does Ayurveda imagine immunity? Because at the time that Ayurveda was conceptualized, we didn't have the germ cell theory, we didn't have this idea of cells. And yet, philosophically, they have much to sort of teach each other. In the 3rd and 4th semester, we have designed for students to do 2 things. One, receive a foundation in asking research questions. So good foundation in research methodology. Second, we want our students to do a research project. Now, for those of you in the audience who are clinicians and are concerned that you will somehow lose touch with your clinical practice, we have left this avenue wide open for you to come and do a research project with a clinician if you wish to improve your clinical practice. Or perhaps Dr. Sreenivasan will be agreeable to take some of our students as interns in his company to look at how the industrial setup works. Or for those of you who are interested in doing bench science and working at a fundamental biology level, we propose that you can either work with us in our university, or we'll help you set up for a good internship in a subject of your choice in a laboratory in India. And for those of you who want to go abroad, that's an option as well. We've tried to design this course so that each student can sculpt their own learning journey, because after all, this is a postgraduate program. It's for 2 years. And we think students are capable at this point of time to decide what is it that they want to get out of the course and after the course. And our faculty are available to help you through this entire process. We get asked often, what can I do after this course? And a linear thought process from any MSc is, get a job or go on, write a few competitive exams and do a PhD. We don't think that students from our course are limited to that. And we certainly don't feel students anyway should be limited to some sort of a linear process. It shouldn't be that you do a BAMS and an MD because that's just the equation that you've been told leads to a career in Ayurveda. We want students to have an option after their course. So we are encouraging them through these 2 electives that they can take in the 3rd semester, which can be entrepreneurship based. They can be something as simple as business accounting, because now, thanks to NPTEL, there are a whole series of courses that are available online. So we want students after this course to know that they have the opportunity to make a career based on what their desires and choices are. And we think that career can happen in the clinic, in the lab. It can happen as a teacher. It can happen if you wanted to work for an NGO, looking at traditional practices and wanting to somehow document them, to help local health practitioners document their vast knowledge and so forth. So we think that this will give you a foundational knowledge to pursue a career in many, many different types of subjects. And so I'm happy to tell you that our admissions are open and we'll accept applications right through the 30th May. Now coming to our guest speaker. So Dr. Rajesh Sreenivasan, I was very happy when I saw his CV. So like some of us in our Center for Ayurveda, Biology and Holistic Nutrition, Dr. Sreenivasan comes from sort of what we call a fundamental biology background. In fact, he got an MSc in botany from Bangalore University and then followed that up with a PhD in NIMHANS. And yet today, Dr. Sreenivasan is a director and heads the research outfit in BV Pundit. Now, for those of you who don't know this company, it's not really as much an industry as a attempt to provide healthcare services in an authentic and service-oriented manner. And these both are very important streams to remember as we try and barrel Ayurveda through to the 21st century. So BV Pundit has been around for more than 108 years. And they started out, they became really famous because of their tut powder, the Nanjangud tut powder. And I hope Dr. Sreenivasan will tell us a little bit about that. But now they make a host of different medicines. And one of the challenges in Ayurveda today is this sort of very fuzzy line between what is Shastric and what will sell, right? Because everybody is looking for that magic bullet. And Ayurveda is sometimes used as a crutch for marketing purposes. And we also feel sometimes very wary, right? Because there are a lot of claims that are made based on Ayurveda products, which we know might not have been there at all. Like, for example, the claim that XYZ can help fight COVID. But you look from a Shastric point of view, even the mention of viruses is not there. There is a sense that there is some sort of creamy, something that exists. So we are constantly exposed to language which tries very hard to fit Ayurveda into what we think as the worldview today. So BV Pundit has really been different because their whole ethos has been through service and preservation of the authentic way of preparing medicines and, of course, therefore taking the medicines. And we're very happy to have Dr. Sreenivasan with us today to answer some questions. and talk to us about his view, not only about Ayurveda biology, but about the Ayurveda industry in general. Welcome, Dr. Sreenivasan.
Thank you so much for your kind words and that exemplary introduction of B.V. Pandit's. So, yeah, you kind of hit it on the head, hit the nail on the head when you said that we are very, very conservative in our processes and thought of Ayurveda and the way Ayurveda should be developing. But nevertheless, it is always one has to keep with the market and one has to keep growing because that's the only way businesses can survive. So, like you said, the difference between Shastric and the so-called neo Ayurveda or the modern Ayurveda or whatever is the new form of Ayurveda, there are a lot of differences. And you can stick to your school of thought and you can always challenge each one of them to say which is right and which is wrong. But I personally feel that there should be two distinctive kind of fields that we should take forward. Following tradition, following the Shastric methods, and following exactly what is written in the textbook should be one part. And then innovating, modernizing, trying to develop on what knowledge base has already been created, and with new research and all of that, should be another completely new field. And you could call it by a different name rather than Ayurveda. Because otherwise, like you said, the lines are too blurred, and then you don't know where the traditional Ayurveda stops and where the new Ayurveda begins. So it is even from for the manufacturer, it is very, very challenging because you get new demands from the market, and then they say that, oh, you're a 100-year-old company, don't you make this, don't you make that, haven't you used extracts, haven't you done this, and why don't you use extracts and stuff like that. So it becomes very challenging at times to convince people that it is probably not correct to piggyback a ride on the 4,000-year-old or probably even longer number of years, as history has it today, probably even more than 20,000 years ago that the Rig Veda was written. So if you take that as the benchmark, then probably for 20,000 years somebody has tried, tested, and established Ayurveda, and they have written down texts, and we are following those methodologies to bring out a safe drug or a safe medicine. But it wouldn't be right for us to piggyback right that tag of Ayurveda and then say that everything is Ayurvedic. And I was mighty surprised even earlier when I got into this firm that and as I learned a little bit about Ayurveda, that even chewing gums and things like that were being branded as Ayurvedic. And I think we still have them. And things like things like that, which were completely chemical based, and they could find some way in or some loophole in the licensing system or of some states, which allowed them to get a license as an Ayurvedic product, which is ridiculous. So I think the focus now is more on how to develop Ayurveda as it was, and to keep it purist in many ways. And also there is this challenge of meeting the requirement of the world and trying to explain Ayurveda in terms that they understand, because not everybody understands it from the point of view of the traditional science that we've been having for eons. So yeah, I could kind of argue on both sides. Like you rightly said, I come from a traditional background of physics, botany, zoology, and chemistry. And then I went on to do biophysics at NIMHANS. I did my PhD in biophysics there. So we did a lot of research on something to do with brain tumor and how we can actually what happens when chemicals are used to treat brain tumor cells and stuff like that. And then because I was from the family and they wanted somebody from the science background, I kind of came in here, and now I've been here for a good 20 years. And in these 20 years, I've learned a little bit of Ayurveda that I know today. Not that I had any formal training, but yeah, the botany did help to an extent. And so today here we are, kind of understanding the traditional stuff. And like any kid, new from the science background would come and try and explore and try and say, okay, why are we doing this? And why are we boiling it like this? And why are we reducing this much? And why are we putting it out in the sun? I also had all those questions. And believe me, I burnt my fingers and understood it practically that you do not toy around with traditional practices because it always, gives you a wrong result. And I have this, this experience with not one drug, but umpteen number of drugs. I'll give you a simple example. We make oils which are to be used for therapy, and these therapeutic oils are normally in the traditional methodology. You make a herbal decoction, and then you use that herbal decoction and put it into the oil, and then boil it off to get the the finished product. And one such oil had, for a batch of say 60 liters, had 240 liters of tender coconut water as an ingredient. Okay, so now, fresh out of my PhD, I would put all my science together and say, why would you put liquid endosperm into, a pot of boiling water or boiling oil and then evaporate it? What does it do? But believe me, I did one batch of avoiding the tender coconut water, and I said, it's of absolutely no use. We just remove this part and let's see what happens. And I just sent it out into the market, the product, and without telling anybody, of course, that so it was like an blind trial, so to say. And within the first week of its use, I got a feedback saying that Munchintara yenne illa idu, means it's not like before. It's the product is just not like before. So the traditional practitioners, and most of them who are into the depths of Ayurveda, can really make the product out very easily, whether it's correctly prepared or not. And that again, brings in a big challenge of cost. Because if you do Ayurveda right, and if you do it, with the right number of ingredients, at the best quality, and all of that is prohibitively costly today. And I don't know why that has happened, but I think we're going to be taking a long time before we can actually think of reducing costs in terms of genuine Ayurvedic products, is what I mean to say. So when people are giving you a Mahanarayana Taila at around 800 rupees or 1,000 rupees, you know that it is, it can't be that product, because Mahanarayana Taila, if I'm not mistaken, has about 58 ingredients, out of which saffron is about half a kg for a 60-liter batch. And if you're putting in half kg of saffron as per the formula mentioned in the Ayurvedic text, then it is going to cost you that much. So, these are things which are challenges for manufacturers. And, one has to draw an ethical balance and say that, okay, I will do it the right way. I don't really care whether I have the markets, I don't have the markets, but then it is niche. And that is why, we have been kind of patronized for over 108 years. And I consider, we are blessed because we hardly advertise. We hardly go about telling people of our existence and the kind of products that we make and all that. We are today manufacturing about 200 and odd Ayurvedic products, of which there is a good mix of the Shastrik. Most of them are Shastrik. I would say about 65% of our 200 and odd products are Shastrik. They are all from the textbook. And about 35% of proprietary stuff. And in that 35% of proprietary stuff, again, a large percentage, like about 70%, is based on the Shastrik principles, and they are like Shastrik products. The remaining 30% is what is in the modern format. So, like capsules and pills and tablets and stuff like that. So we have done that also. It's not that we have remained completely Shastrik, because like I said in the beginning, it's very difficult to survive otherwise. So we have done that part also. At the same time, I would also like to say that when you do this, when you bring in research-based stuff, and when you bring in, because I think that was in one of your questions, it could come up later also, that what is your research-based product or something like that, some modern product that you've done. So we worked on an anti-diabetic for a long time now, and unfortunately, COVID kind of pulled things back a bit for us, but otherwise it was ready to go for human trials. And I think we had also approached IAM for conducting the human trials, and at around 2017 or 18. And by the time we could actually do the toxicology and come back, I think we were reeling with COVID. And then I think now things are coming back, so we probably could think of getting back to that. So yeah, so I mean, there is a huge, there is enough scope to modernize, improvise, get into the new league of Ayurveda. But at the same time, I personally feel, and I've said this on several platforms also, that it is best to keep the two separate. You can do any amount of research, you can do any amount of modernization, any amount of improvisation, but don't call it authentic Ayurveda. Is what is what I would feel, because it's not a level. It's just not a level playing field. It is just not a level playing field.
I'd like to go back to your initially, when you talked about your initial years of finishing up a PhD, and then
Right.
it was a family business, but still, there must have been some tension because you're not a Vaidya.
Right.
And you
I regret
are,
it even today.
yeah, and you're telling somebody don't add coconut water. So can you talk about that transition, and can you talk about as a company what challenges you have faced, if any, because there seems to be a little bit of this isolation between Ayurveda training and maybe running an industry.
Absolutely. See, the fact is that when you come from a research background, you're looking at everything. You want to find reason for everything, but it's not possible to do that with Ayurveda. Obviously, somebody has done that and documented it, and that's why it's become a fact. And that fact has run several thousand years, and you don't try and challenge those kind of established facts now. Um, from the point of view of what were the challenges that I found, initially accept that this is how Ayurveda is practiced itself was new to me. I mean, coming from Nimans, I was obviously more oriented towards the allopathic format of how things are done. And then I came back, and when I came down here, I had to interact with Vaidyas, understand, what is Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and what is the, how do they understand Prakriti, and why is it that, they want, and why is it that my grandfather would make certain things the way he was making them. So that itself was a challenge, to understand. And I would keep questioning as to why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Why are they keeping it in the sun? So much so that my granddad, while making a few of his products, which we unfortunately have stopped manufacturing now, some of the Rasaushadhis, he would chant, continuously keep chanting mantras. And, during the entire preparation, my uncles have told me that. I was not witness to it, but I was told. And unfortunately, we are not doing all of that now because, that dedication and that science is lost. We really need to get back people to believe in that and say that, yes, whatever it is, it has a meaning, and it has its power, and it does whatever it has to do. Again, I'll give you a very simple example. We make a preparation called Shivakutika, which we are now also trying at the JSS Medical College for, on cancer cell lines. And it is meant for Arbuda Roga. That is, it is meant for, tumors and cancerous growth. And it's also, something that can be used for lifestyle disorders and whatnot. So it has a huge kind of application to it. Absolutely classical. It is a textbook preparation, and it has to be made in the sun for 45 days because it has to get evaporated. it has 9 decoctions. So you start with the starting material, and then you have 9 decoctions which are traditionally done in a sequence. Believe me, again, putting science to it, it's, in the monsoon, you can't make it because there's no sun. And I thought, what is the great deal that the sun is doing? It's only evaporating. So why don't we keep it in dryers, and why don't we, set the temperature at 38 degrees and 35 degrees and all of that science, that one could bring to it. But you forget that there is something called UV. You don't know what UV is doing. And the sun's rays are required to do something chemical which changes the composition, which brings about certain reactions, which brings about certain catalytic activity. So it's very, very difficult to understand why things were done the way they were done, and it needs a very, very in-depth research. So something like Shivgutika, which we have taken up, and the results are very, very promising. In fact, they have done some extraction on the pill, and they're trying those extracts on tumor cell lines, and they're almost matching up to certain anti-cancer drugs, which is very, very encouraging for us. And so there's a whole PhD that is coming out of that research work. That is one part. And sorry, I get carried away. So if you have some question to ask me, please do. Yeah. You're muted. You're muted.
It answers both those questions. One was your transition, and the second one was kind of the products that you're looking for in the future. What kind of skill sets are you looking for in your company when you are hiring people?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So like I was explaining all this while, even taking the same example as Shivgutika, it is so difficult to kind of create a hypothesis of research work around any Ayurvedic product, because first of all, they're multi-ingredient. Second of all, they have multiple functions. And even to understand pathways, it's going to be so difficult, because you really need to break down and come down to molecular level. And when in doing that, and that's what probably has happened in whatever modern Ayurveda has to offer, in trying to do that, you try and go back to being reductionist, which is not the concept of Ayurveda, basically. So my requirement, or my thing would be that we really need people who can understand the Ayurvedic concepts and also understand the molecular part, which is what I think your course is offering, and which is an excellent thing. And if we can get more and more people to get into research, this kind of an understanding and this kind of a background, I think they will really be a boon to understanding Ayurveda better, because it's not about coming up with a new product as such, but trying to explain or understand how a classical Ayurvedic product has is offering us the kind of relief, and is offering us the kind of health benefits that it is. And again, when a lot of students come over, I do tell them one thing. I said, look, the Rig Veda had mentioned about certain herbs, and let us just take the common herb ashwagandha. And there is an attribute that was given to ashwagandha in the Rig Vedas or in the Shastras, whenever 10,000, 20,000, you can put any number to it. Even 1,000 years is a lot of time. Today, the same plant is giving you the same attributes. Isn't it something which has to be thought-provoking, that how is Mother Nature actually protected this? And as a comparison, when you look at rice, because of the genetic modification, making it high yielding and pest resistant and whatnots, we probably have lost that inherent property of it that was actually curing, which is another thought that comes across, is cultivation the right answer? I mean, can you mollycoddle an ashwagandha plant to make it high yielding and all of that, and you really don't know what secondary metabolites you're losing in that entire process? So again, it's a large area of work. I mean, you really need many such Ayurveda biology students who can understand these nuances and try and decipher it and help people understand that, look, this is the right way, because Ayurveda is growing. I mean, just recently in the Gujarat global investors meet, the Prime Minister has opened up many more avenues for Ayurveda. So he's opened up Ayurveda tourism. He says medical tourism is big. But when these people come in, you need authentic medicines. You need good medicines. You need medicines that can cure. And that comes from the herbs. And there again, if the herb is something which is, getting repeatedly cultivated, it will probably lose its potency, its potential, which is a threat, I feel. Again, these are all, personal opinions. I'm sure research will establish and take us further.
One thing we've been trying to tell our students is that the purpose of Ayurveda biology is not validation. So it is a process of understanding, and many times we feel that because this is an ancient science, and for whatever reason, when it was documented, they didn't tell us how they figured out what they did, and it just came to us as little capsules, right?
Yeah, probably we lost it. It was there. Maybe we lost it in the transition. It's quite possible that it was there, but it was lost. Yeah.
And so now to go back and try to figure out that logic is a bit like being a detective. But the fact that it, like you said, it's been around for so long and it works. So the point of Ayurveda biology can't be validation, is what we tell our students. The point is to understand the science, to look at these, and also maybe discover new biology because of the way something has been described.
True, yeah, true. Very true. Because, the fact is that we can't stagnate. We have to keep moving on. And as we're moving on, all that we're trying to say is the concept should not be lost. The fact that it was an absolutely safe and, relatively safe. You can't say the same thing about, overuse of bhasmas and things like that. And there is another example that I keep giving people is that, look, you can have half a kg of, say, beans or carrot or whatever, and your gut would still be fine with it. But you can't take an absolute extract of that half kg of beans and put it into your gut and say that your gut is going to react the same way. So these are things that we need to really establish. And I think, if I'm right, this is the first course of Ayurveda biology. This is the first.
There is another one that is at JNU, right?
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think
5-year BSc MSc integrated program that also started last year, right?
Okay, I really look forward to these people, helping us in many ways, because this is exactly what they need to do.
Yes, and half our class comes from fundamental biology. So we've also created an atmosphere so that they can learn from each other and they don't have to rely on.
That's right. Yeah. So they have that good mix of ideas, and they can when they brainstorm, you really can bring about all aspects of the science there. You should also probably, I don't know if you have agriculturists also. I think that's a good mix to have too.
Try to attract them. Because certainly from one of our colleagues, Dr. Mohan, is an agriculturist. So he comes with a long background in that.
The course is basically open for that group, but for our first batch, we have not received any application. We are looking forward.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you a question. So many of, not many, but some of our students want to become entrepreneurs and sort of ride this wave of, wellness, because, as you said, that's what the government is also trying to open up for. What advice do you have for such entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs?
That's a good question. If you ask me today, I've been so frustrated over the last week that I would say, please don't get anywhere venturing into, being an entrepreneur. So, our line is tough. because you have now too many regulations and too many laws that are coming up. I'm sure you've educated these people about the Biodiversity Act and what comes with it. So I think all of these will get revised. They will get corrected and understood more appropriately. And it is genuinely towards protection of the flora and fauna of our country, but not to harass industrialists or in terms of their usage of bioresource. So yeah, apart from that, yes, I think it is very appropriate. The time is very appropriate. It is, in fact, again, the Prime Minister has requested startups to come, and it is certainly a very, very opportune time. Again, what are the products that you're going to come up with, and whether they're going to be more research-based or they're going to be classical? That is the question. And to my understanding, I think what is going to be happening, and what probably has already started, is that a lot of countries are going to be having Ayush boards or departments or kind of established in their countries, which is going to easen out or kind of open up the pathways for either practitioners or people to go there and help out establishing industries. And the best is that if they can go to these countries, and I'm told in the speech the Prime Minister mentioned that about 150 countries are opening up their arms to establishing Ayurvedic centers there, or trade even. And so the trade would require regulation, and with regulation comes the opportunities to go there, establish industry even in those 150 countries. So the time is absolutely golden era, as he himself said. So very opportune time. But like I said, it either has to be a research-based product or it has to be a traditional product. And the scope is more for traditional products because it is very easily adaptable by anybody across the country. So research products like the proprietary stuff that come out when you do some research and then understand that, okay, this combination works good, and these are the clinical trial results, and this is how we have been able to establish. First of all, that takes time, and then after that, you have to kind of set up a manufacturing facility that is GMP compliant and all of that. So that's a longer route to becoming a successful entrepreneur. The easier is to start with traditional stuff. And I'm telling you that even a simple Triphala Churna, which is genuine, is today lacking in the market. It's a sorry state of affairs, but yeah.
And I guess if you're going with this major export-driven or globalization, we really need to pull up our socks as a country, huh? In terms of
absolutely, yeah. And the Department of Ayush and the Ministry of Ayush is doing. I mean, they're putting in a good amount of efforts in that direction. And I think after a long time, there has been focus in this area. So definitely the regulations are tightening up, and they're tightening up even for the industry, because obviously they don't want any, fly-by-night operator coming. And it has happened in the past. I'm sure you've seen several advertisements for several products that have come over a year, and then suddenly they disappear, and you don't find them again. And so these kind of people, create a business loss for established companies like us, and they just operate for a year, 2 years max, 3 years, and then get out of the market. So they're not serious. So if you want to be a long-term player, then it's always good to be, clear and absolutely to the following all rules and regulations right from the beginning. So
there's one question, and it's he's the scientist working at the Indian Institute of Science. He's also associated as a faculty department. He says every plant now is pure. Without validation, how can we say that a formulation is genuine and working?
Yeah, every plant used now is not pure. So what is the definition of pure? I mean, you know, there is yeah. So if you're looking at pure from the adulterants aspect, or you're looking at pure from the fact that it is not probably growing in the best of the conditions, and it's not probably picked at the right season. So there the various definitions to it. Like I said, if you want to do absolutely textbook Ayurveda, it is practically impossible. I don't think we can get there. And like I said, if you're doing cultivation and you're mollycoddling the plant and keeping it in absolutely safe environment, also you're probably not doing justice in terms of using it like um, the Ayurvedic practitioners were using it decades ago, or centuries ago. So yeah, it's a question, but the fact is that no matter what, even with the available ingredients that we have today, say it's Triphala or Ashwagandha or some of the common ones, the fact is that you're still getting results. If you do it right, you still get results. And so how would you then defend that? The fact is that there's nothing wrong. I mean, at least we haven't lost all of it as yet. So the purity of the plant to that extent is still there, that we are still getting results. So, and that is clinically tested also. So there are the Kerala-based companies are more into classical preparations, and of course they follow their most of them follow the textbook called Sahasra Yoga, and they have their entire combinations of medicines over there, and those are all being clinically tried, and they're all pretty good. They are getting the clinical evidence, and that is why there is this resurrection, or so to say, rejuvenated interest in Ayurveda today world over, and it was proven during the COVID times.
Another question from Upendra. Nice question. So plants have multiple species, right? And how do we know which one is the right one, especially because
Excellent question. Yeah, excellent question. I think this is something that Ayurveda biology should take up, and I'm sure there's already a lot of research. First of all, what is the correlation between the Sanskrit name and the species? That itself is a big question mark. Over and above that, Kashmir to Kanyakumari and probably Assam to Rajasthan, there is so much of variation. There is so much of variation because probably, I mean, one has to imagine the time at which it developed, and whether people were really able to travel the kind of distances that we can travel today. So obviously, it was all very inherent and very localized, and therefore a rasna which people use in North India is not the same as what we use down south. And so there are several such examples. But yes, I mean, one of the challenges in standardizing Ayurveda across the country itself is that Dashmula is not the same. Again, Kashmir to Kanyakumari, you will find a lot of changes in the Dashmula composition itself. So that is a challenge. Yes, it is. That is why I think we need the Ayurveda biology people.
Yes, so clearly it must be suitable for the desha that it was thrived for. So probably a Kashmiri Dashamula is not going to work so well if you are a Trivandrum.
We don't know. For those people, yes. Maybe for the Kashmiris it works well, but it may not work as well for the down south people. And the same, the vice versa. So it is very interesting, the speed. And okay, to add to all this confusion, you have something called the Pratinidhi Dravyas. Okay, so you have the substitutes or the alternative species. So it is very, very confusing. It is very, very confusing, and that's what has probably allowed people to kind of play around with Ayurveda and still get away with it.
Yes, and ultimately, again, I go back to saying that I think there's a lot of biology new biology that one can discover. And I think we've not really
Yes.
looked at Ayurveda as a way to find new discoveries. We are really looking at it just
Not
as a
only that,
medical.
yeah, see, from this is different species. Obviously, you would be helping nature and probably ensuring that there is more sustainable usage of herbal species if you are actually discovering more alternative plant species that can give you the same effect. Apart from that, say for the dashmulas, like you use bilva, the bilva root is used, and ashwagandha root is used. Amongst the dashmulas itself, what they call the bruhat panchamulas, the first five of them are all supposedly root barks. And if you're using that, um, obviously there is going to be a problem of not being sustainable, because you're going to be chopping off the roots every time. So you start working on whether the stem bark can be used, or the leaves can be used, or the fruit can be used. So amongst the same species itself, you can do a lot of work. And of course you can also identify other species and alternative plants. So yeah, I mean, it is, the scope is huge.
To our students, because they can take electives, different types of
Mhm.
electives. Now, in retrospect, given that you've spent more than 3 decades at BV Pundit, what elective would you tell them to take that you think is really essential for them?
What electives?
What subject or what skills, what topic you think they should become familiar
If
with?
yeah, so again, it depends on their interest. So if they are taxonomy, obviously, is one thing that they would definitely a skill which I'm kind of getting rusty with my taxonomy, although I did botany, but it's a good tool to have. And in plants, it's very, very difficult, because the species are so subtly different, and there are so many plants which look exactly the same but are totally different. So it's good to know your taxonomy, and definitely if somebody has an interest in the chemistry part, the organic chemistry of or the phytochemistry, so to say, and a little bit of knowledge of yeah, could maybe a little bit of physiology. So that is the right combination, I feel, because that would help. That would help a lot.
That's nice. All right. So I think we've answered all the questions that were there. And then we'd like to thank you for your time, for spending an hour with us answering our questions.
You're welcome.
And we hope to
I
send
just
some
hope it's
students.
been interesting enough.
And we hope that next time you're in Bangalore, you can come out and visit us at TDU. We'd
Definitely,
love
yeah.
to interact with you face to face.
Definitely, definitely. It would be a pleasure, and I would come because we are in process of trying to rejuvenate our herbal garden, which has about 300 odd species. So I would definitely want to come there and pick up a few plants for the garden as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, Dr. Sreenivasan.
Thank you so much, and I hope I've not bored anybody on this. So
Not at all. Not at all. If nothing else, Vishu and I enjoyed the talk.
Yeah,
right.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.